Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Dave Hernandez. I'm the Senior Director of Learning and Professional Development for IPC. Thank you for joining us on this third webinar talking about Edge 2.0. We're going to be talking about a little bit about the system. We're going to do a little bit of a system overview today. Then we're going to walk through the actual system from an instructor point of view, and I'll show you a little bit from the student's point of view. And then we'll have some Q&A section at the end of this. So before we start, I wanted to point out that you should see a little question bar at the bottom of your screen. That's where you can go ahead and type questions. At the end of the presentation, we're going to leave some time at the end of the webinar so that we can actually go through your questions, and we'll try to get through as many of your questions as we can. If we can't answer your question during the presentation, someone will get back to you with an answer. But we've been able to, I think, collect all the questions from the last two presentations, and we'll try to work in as much of that information into the actual presentation as possible. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to add them into the question box there. And other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. So sometime in the middle of last year, early middle of last year, we decided that we needed to start collecting some information from our end users about our current CQI system and our testing functionality. And really what we did was we spent some time speaking to our training centers and trying to get a better understanding of what the pain points and the significant issues were in the system. Some of the problems that were described to us were slow loading times, a delay in processing, frequent downtimes, a long log-in process, and there were many other things that came up. So we did an evaluation of the current system, and we kind of mapped it out against what we saw as a potential new system. And we decided, you know what, instead of trying to put a band-aid on our current system, there were so many places where we felt that we could have been doing better, that maybe we should start with a blank canvas approach. And that's what we did. And so we started to build out a completely new infrastructure from the ground up. And it's a transition that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen in phases, and the first phase is coming up very soon, which we're going to be talking about a little bit here. And I think that's going to be able to help us give you the system that you need in order to support your students. So I want to talk a little bit about how the configuration of the old system was versus the new system. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time getting into the technical aspects of this, but I always thought that it was interesting and helpful to understand where some of the challenges resided. So we have a CRM system, NetSuite, inside of IPC, and that CRM really manages all of our user data. We have a CQI portal that instructors and students log into in order to set up classes, access their exams, things like that. And there's a database in between them where some data is stored. The rest of that data is stored in NetSuite. Now, CQI itself doesn't do any of the actual training or testing. It in fact connects to test.com and to our Edge 1.0 platform. So CQI really just acts as a conduit to all these different systems. And the problem that we had there, and one of the problems that was identified, was that constant communication back and forth between all these different things was significantly slowing down the process. It was creating long lag times or significant latency. And it was also creating problems with being able to stay connected and being able to stay up and being able to service it in a significant way. Additionally, with the exception of the CQI system and the certification database, all the rest of the systems were hosted by other organizations that we partnered with. So it made it difficult if there was an issue for us to be able to go ahead and fix that issue in a timely manner. So in the new system, we've kind of simplified the process, and this is only one step in that direction. Now, instead of having NetSuite and all these different things communicating to CQI, CQI has one certification database where all information is kept in there for all certification and education information. That information gets duplicated out into NetSuite on a nightly basis, so it's not a big deal. It doesn't slow down performance to CQI. But more importantly, we were able to replace all the rest of that functionality in our new Edge 2.0 platform. So we will no longer be relying on outside resources to be able to deliver these services. Furthermore, we've been able to move a lot of the functionality that existed in CQI into the Edge 2.0 platform and what we think is a lot more of an intuitive structure, which we'll talk a little bit about once we actually get into the system in a couple of minutes. So the first phase for us really was internalizing and simplifying that architecture. We wanted to internalize all these systems and simplify everything. Anytime you're dealing with an IT infrastructure, a digital infrastructure, complexity is always going to cause more problems than simplicity. So we really wanted to go to a simplistic kind of approach. And part of that was the idea of localizing our data into the cloud so that information, we didn't have to keep referring back and forth to different systems. But another thing that we're doing is we wanted, since we were moving to the cloud, we wanted to kind of use the cloud infrastructure to provide better uptime, better connectivity, and to better spread out our resources around the world. So we're using something called the Content Delivery Network, a CDN, so that now information, for example, pictures on a test, are located throughout the world. Instead, if you're taking a test in Hong Kong, you're no longer going to have your computer trying to connect to a computer in Delaware and have the information from Delaware sent over to Hong Kong, because that creates latency and long load times. Instead, the Content Delivery Network spaces out all this information around the world. So there are duplicates of all this information spread out across the world. And so instead of trying to connect to a computer in Delaware, you're trying to connect to a computer that's in your own country. So that's step one. Step two is really to redevelop the whole CQI portal into something more attuned to a user portal, where all of your information, whether you're a student, an instructor, or just an individual trying to take training, can be located. And so that's really the next phase, phase two of this project after we launch this initial system, which I'm going to show you now in a little bit. We've been beta testing the Edge 2.0 platform for, I think we're in week 7 now, week 6 or week 7 of testing. We started February 12th. We've been implementing updates every week to the system. So as instructors have tested the platform, we've been asking them for feedback. What did you like? What didn't you like? What worked? What didn't work? What should we have added that we did not add initially? And they go ahead and give us that feedback, and we've been able to implement updates on a weekly basis. We had 3 test phases for the beta. The first test phase was when we were just testing the training functionality. The next test phase, we were training we were testing the training and the student testing, the certification testing in the portal. The last phase is testing we haven't really entered into, and that's where we test the new CQI functionality that has been developed. That testing we will be entering into very soon. We started international testing March 5th. We've been testing in several different in different countries rather. Internationally, this is our second week of testing inside of China, for example. So all of our testing has been going very well. We're very pleased with the results we're getting and the feedback we're getting. We still have more testing that we're going to be doing, beta testing that we're going to be doing. So we are open to new participants. If you're interested, if you're going to be hosting a class over the next several weeks and you're interested in running your class in the new portal, please reach out to myself or to Chris Roberson, who's our Director of Certification, who is our point person on the beta testing, and we will set you up as one of our beta test sites. We're trying to get as much information and feedback as we can. We had originally talked about the system releasing at the end of April, and we're actually going to hold that back a few weeks to do some more testing. We feel very confident about where we are with the testing, but we feel like this is one of those situations where we do not want to replicate issues that have occurred in the past, like with the CQI rollout. We want to make sure that this has been tested as thoroughly as possible. Additionally, in the first few weeks of feedback that we've received, we've had some really great feedback about new things we should add to the system that we never considered adding. And we thought, it would be nice to add these at the beginning versus a couple of weeks after rollout. So we decided, after we kind of took a look at everything, that we were going to hold the release back. We don't have an exact release date for you. I can tell you that we are targeting the middle of June as the release date. An official release date will come out with an actual date. Will come out in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, we feel very confident about where we are. But we want to really take our time and make sure that we're doing things the right way. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the new portal here so you can take a look at it. Let me log into my account. So all users have the same type of dashboard, and this is still, we're still working on the look and feel of this. That's really the last thing you work on. So this may look a little bit different than it does now, but it's going to have pretty much the same parts. For users, the primary part of their dashboard is the course overview section. And this section here has information about all the courses that you're currently enrolled in. So each one of these are all test courses, obviously, because we're in beta, are all test courses that I, as a student, or I, as an instructor, am enrolled in. The dashboard defaults to the in progress tab here, as you can see, and this shows you anything that you're currently enrolled in that is currently running. But you can also switch over to a future view, and this will show you any classes that you are enrolled in that have not started, just as the past view will show you any classes that you are that you were enrolled in that have already completed. Okay, and the whole idea here is that as we start adding more and more resources into the system, people may actually be enrolled in multiple things at the same time, and maybe enrolled in courses that may be starting later on, and we want them to have visibility into all those things in one simple place. On the right-hand side here, you'll see a section for people's certifications and certificates. So you can actually access the information here. Most of this is, again, test information, so it's not how it's going to look in the final version. But if you click all my certificates, it will actually show you all of your certificates and certifications that you've earned. Okay. For example, let me grab one of these. It shows you your grade, whatever grade you earned. I got a 2.75% on this test, so obviously I did really well. My certification code. All right, so this is the actual serial number of your certification, the date that it's issued, and you have the ability to download your certificate by clicking on the button here. Okay, and I just downloaded this to show you what it looks like. This is what our new certificates look like. All the information on the certificates will now be auto-generated. So instructors do not need to print these out or need to add any information. So the date that the certificate or your certification was completed will be automatically generated. The date that it expires will be automatically generated. The instructor's name, so whoever the CIT or MIT was that did the training, as well as the CIT or MIT's company will appear, the company name will appear directly on the certificate. There's no need to write anything else in. Additionally, any of the optional modules that someone would take as part of the training will be auto-filled. If the date, if the module was completed, the date that it was completed will appear on the certificate. If it was not, it'll say not completed on there. Since these are digital certificates, it'll automatically update the moment that any of the requirements are met. So if you go out and complete the required modules in module 1, you automatically get your certification. It'll say not completed on all of these. The moment you finish module 2, if you were to click that button again, it'll have the update on the module 2. Excuse me. Additionally, the certifications will actually output in 2 different sizes automatically for you. So you can either print it out in A4 or US standard size, whatever's better for you. And we actually have instructions on the system on printing it out. Now, the other thing to remember is that once you have an account on the system, that'll be your account forever. You never lose your account. So you'll always have access to your dashboard. You may not have access to any courses because you may not be enrolled in anything, but you'll always have access to your dashboard, which means you'll have a historical record of your certifications listed there for you. So let me go ahead and jump back to my dashboard. Okay, you'll notice up here a menu. Some of these menu items are going to be changing. There's going to be a new help section, things like that. But one of the sections up here is verify certification. If you click on that, you do not have to be logged in order to gain access to this. So you don't even have to have an account to gain access to the verification of certificates. It shows you a sample certificate. It shows you where the serial number for that certification can be found. And it shows you an area where you can go ahead and enter that serial number. So I'm going to go ahead, come here and grab this serial number and drop it in here and hit verify, and you'll see that it verifies my name, what certification I've earned, and when it was earned, and that it was valid. If I were to drop in the same serial number and change one of the numbers on there, it would tell me that it's not validated. Okay. One of the things you noticed when I did put in the correct number is that I had this little image here for a photograph. This is not something that we're using at the moment. The idea of having photographs of all the certified individuals. It is something that we're exploring for the future, though. We think it would be a good security mechanism for some of our certifications, not for all of them. I don't really see this as something that will be necessary for all certifications, but for some of our certifications, it may be something that we're going to be exploring in the future. Other than that, your dashboard will also have a calendar, and the calendar will actually show you any sort of event, right? Or tests that have been scheduled, events in your class, anything like that that have been already put onto the calendar. And so that's why you have the ability to kind of jump around and jump ahead and see, well, if I'm enrolled in multiple classes, I can see what days all the exams are scheduled for, or I can see if I'm taking, for example, an education course online, I can see when things expire, when things are due, etc. So one last thing I wanted to mention on the dashboard here is that you'll notice that next to the name of the course, there's a little circle that starts to get filled in a percentage. This actually lets the student know how much of the course content they have completed, so that it kind of just gives them a real brief visual view of how far along they are in a particular course. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the 610 course, and this is not something that other people will be able to do. I have an administrative account, so I'm going to actually switch my role. So I don't see this as an administrator. I want to see this as a teacher. So I'm going to view this as a teacher. Notice at the moment that I switched over to a teacher view, I have this new box here. This is my teacher box. So this shows me all the functionality I could do as a teacher, and I'll get to that in a moment. Right now, all the course content, your menus are here. So these are the quick links, whether you're a student or a teacher. All the course material is viewed here in the central part of the screen, and this is all designed to be dynamic. So this will all reshape itself based upon what size screen you are using. So you can do this on a tablet, you can do this on a phone, you can do this on a computer. It doesn't matter. As long as you can connect to the internet, you'll be able to have access to the course, and it's designed in a way to make it easy for you to kind of touch everything and move around. The first section in each course is a Start Here section. And this section of the course just has information on different things. So for example, it tells you a little bit about how you earn your certification. If you need help printing your certification, it'll have information on how to print your certification, things like that. Then the next section of any course is going to be the mandatory section. And this is the section where you can launch things like the essentials course, the policies and procedures. Remember, everything now is embedded together. There's a lot of text here. Most of this text is going away. We're simplifying the view for the student. But if you wanted to launch essentials, instead of having to log out, go into another system, use a different password, all that stuff, all you have to do is go ahead and click on the link. It takes you to a page that tells you a little bit about essentials. You hit enter, and now I have launched the Essentials program. So I'm going to exit out of there. It takes me back to where I was. The same thing is true for the Enhanced Policies and Procedures online course. You just go ahead and click it, wait a couple seconds, it'll load into your screen, and you're good to go. All right, so I click out of there, I'm done. You're not required to take the Essentials program in every single certification if you've done it once. So after the first time that you've done the Essentials program, you have the ability to bypass it by selecting this button here. It tells you that information here. You can choose to bypass the course if you've already taken it in another course. You cannot do that with the policies and procedures, because in the near future, each program will have a unique set of policies and procedures. So we want to make sure that regardless of how many certifications you go through the policies and procedures section for each one. You have the ability to download your policies and procedures document, the latest version. And then finally, there's a policies and procedures exam that users can take only when the instructor unlocks the test and that individual has met the other prerequisites for the course. Each module lets you know what the status of the module is for the student. So if you've completed a module, it'll look green like this. If you have not completed a module, it'll look orange like this. All right, and again, when there are prerequisites for a module, the module will tell you what the prerequisites are for you completing that module. So we try to be very transparent with the students so that they understand what exactly it is that they are completing and what they need to complete. Let's go ahead and I'm going to jump into the JStandard course very quickly so I can show you a couple other things that are unique to that course and some of our other courses. So let me switch over to my teacher role. Okay, so this is now our JStandard course. One of the things you'll notice now in the JStandard course is that in our modules, you not only have an exam, but you also have a workmanship requirement for some of these modules. Okay, now the instructors have the ability to enter the grades right through the classroom. So if you have if you need to enter grades, for example, for module 5 or module 4, that's a better example. Let's say module 4 for the JStandard, all you need to do is come over to your instructor screen and select module 4. And what it'll do is it'll bring up a list of all the students that are registered in your class, and you'll have the ability to enter grades for them. So a passing grade is competent, a non-passing grade or a failing grade is not competent. And all you do is go ahead and fill that out. If a student doesn't have a grade box, it means that they have already completed this module. So you can't enter a grade already for someone that has already completed it. So you'll notice here, they don't have the ability to enter the grade for them. They've already completed that module. Once I've entered all the grades, I can also have the ability to enter feedback. Now, this feedback is information that the student will see on their account when they log in and they look at their grades. So if a student failed a workmanship sample, for example, and you wanted to give them a brief explanation as to why they failed, you can enter the information in this section here. Okay, you just type it in there, and when you're ready, you just click save. It'll save all the information. It'll upload automatically all the student records. There's no need to log into each student and do anything like that. It can all be handled very easily from one screen. Okay, so that's for workmanship samples. When you do paper exams, so when you do online print exams, you would enter the grades the same way. You're gonna when you do an online print exam, your class will not look like this. Your class will not have the ability to schedule exams, which I'm going to show you next. You're going to instead have a grade book that looks just like this one, where you would enter the grades for each of the modules for each of the students. And that way, it's kind of easy for you to be able to enter all the grades for each student in a very easy and quick manner without having to log into each student's account to do that. Now, in the JStandard, you have both workmanship samples and you have tests that you need to schedule for the student to take online. Now, students don't have access to any tests until it is unlocked by the teacher. So the instructor needs to unlock the exam for the students in order for them to have access. Before, in the old system, the instructor would have to go to each computer and unlock each computer individually. Now you can handle all that from your account. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the schedule exams link. And when you go to a schedule exam, it shows you a list of exams, a list of modules, and there's two columns here. There's group and there's individuals. So you have the ability to either unlock an exam for the entire group or for a specific individual. The reason we do it that way is that most people utilize the group functionality. It saves you a lot of time to be able to do the whole group at once. But sometimes there's a student who has failed an exam and needs to retake it. So instead of having to unlock it for the whole group, you can unlock it for that student. So let me go ahead and show you. I'll show you both now. I'm going to go ahead and jump into unlocking module 4 for the group. So when I click on this, the first thing it shows me is it shows me any other schedules that I have for this exam. Okay, so if this group already has this exam unlocked between March 1st and June 1st. Okay. Now, obviously, you don't ever want to unlock a test during that time, because that means that any student can walk in at any point from any computer and take that test during that unlocked time. All right. So instead, what you want to do is you want to unlock it for the window of time that you want your students to have access to it. Now, IPC tracks the IP address of every system that has access to the system. So we can very easily track the fact that the students are all taking exams from a wide range of IPs. So really, this is not something where you want to be violating the rules, because even more now, we have the ability to have transparency into ensuring that students are actually being proctored during the exam process. So if you wanted to schedule an exam for a group, all you had to do is click schedule. So you can look at any exams that have already been scheduled. If you wanted to schedule another one, you can click schedule exam for the group. You can pick the date and the time that you want to unlock the exam, and then the date and the time where you want the exam to relock. Now, because this is a global system, what we've done is we've made the time zones universal. So all time zones in the system are going to be on UTC time. Okay, and it's on a 24-hour clock. If you need help on how to convert your local time zone to UTC or to the 24-hour clock, you can just hit this help and examples section, and it'll walk you through the process. It'll give you help on how to set up the proper time in the system based on the UTC time zone. One of the features that we recently added into this is also for instructors that teach multiple groups. So sometimes instructors teach, for example, a morning group and an afternoon group, right? If your students are taking the same course, if I have a morning group for J Standard and a afternoon group for J Standard 001, and I wanted to schedule the exams for each of them, I don't have to leave the class, enter the new class, and schedule it there. I can actually just change the group that I want to unlock it for right here in this menu. Each class that an instructor has, and you'll only be able to see your classes as an instructor, each of your classes will show up in this list here. So let's go ahead and cancel this so I can move back to scheduling exams, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from an individual's perspective. So I'm going to come over here to Module 4, and you're going to see any exam unlocks that you've already done for Module 4 for any students in your class. Again, if you want to schedule the whole group, you do it in the group. If you want to schedule for one individual, you do it here. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is different in this screen than the other one is that some of the names are gray and some of them are orange. And down here, it has an explanation for you. Any student that is gray and that has an asterisk, it means that they have not met the prerequisites to take this test. So this is a Module 4 test, right? It's not going to allow me to take Module 4 because I have not completed Module 1. So the instructor can unlock the test, but regardless of whether the instructor unlocks the test or not, it will not allow the student to take the test because the student has not met the prerequisites for that. And so this is a warning to the instructor. Hey, if you can schedule the test ahead of time, but just make sure that your student has completed the prerequisites prior to trying to open the exam, because otherwise the system will not allow you to do so. So I'm going to come here to schedule the exam, and it looks very much like the group exam, but instead of having a list of groups, you'll have a list of students in your class. Okay, and you can click the student that you want to unlock it for. If you want to search, you can also search for the user's name, and it will narrow down the field for you until you find the specific student that you're looking for. You set up the same thing, date and time for opening and closing, save, and now you've scheduled an exam for an individual. On the summary screen that you first come to when you click on schedule an exam for a particular module, it shows you specifically the name of the individual, the day it opens, the day it's closed, the number of attempts that that individual has left. Obviously, this is a demo, so we've put unlimited, but normally you have 2 attempts to complete a test, so it'll let you know that there's 2 attempts left, or there's 1 attempt left, or that the individual has no attempts. So you can schedule an exam for him, but he will not be able to take it, or he or she will not be able to take it because they don't have any attempts left. If you wanted to edit this information, you can just come here to this little gear icon, and it'll open up the schedule again, and you'll be able to modify the schedule that you have already set up for that individual. If you want to delete it, you can click the X, or if you wanted to copy it. So if you wanted to set up the same schedule for 2 students, so I have 2 students that both failed and I want to schedule them at the same time, you don't have to copy over, start all over and fill out all the information again. All you have to do is click the copy button, and now it's going to copy all the open and close information for that initial student that you created, and now all you have to do is click on new student. And now you have that new student added on there. And again, these are the little things that we're trying to add into it to really simplify life for our instructors. You know, we understand the complexity of running these classes, the amount of work it takes. You know, so whether it's adding the information automatically into the certificates or kind of making it easier to schedule the classes, we're trying to make it as simple as possible to do these things. So down here under the scheduling section, there's also something called user reports. When you click on user reports, what it does is it gives you a view of all the students in your class. And next to each student, it'll show you if they've earned their certification, it'll show you their certification serial number and when they earned their certification. It'll also show you all the exams in the class, whether they're workmanship or whether they're exams that they're taking online, the grades that they've earned, right? And any feedback that you've left them. Okay, so this user report is really used by the instructor if you wanted to kind of take a look at where people were in your class. So if I wanted to come and take a look at, oh, essentials here, this person has not completed essentials, I can do that and take a look at all the students in my class and see whether they've completed essentials or not. If I wanted to export this information, there's 2 ways of doing that. You can click export here, and it takes you to a page for you to export the information, or you can click here where it says export grades to Excel. It defaults to all the fields that we showed, but you can choose which fields you want to see and which fields you don't want to see. You can click download, and it'll instantly download an Excel file for you that you can open up, and it'll show you all this information. Now, one piece of information that I wanted to give you about this that we're adding in is that we received information from some of our beta test instructors that they would like to be able to have the student's certification serial number as part of this report. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. It's not in here just yet, but it will be. And so here you can see all the information, including when they took their test and all that. Right. There's a help section for instructors. Right now, this is kind of sparse, but before launch, this will have a manual that you can either view online or download that'll show you step-by-step everything that I'm showing you now. And it's going to be set up in a very intuitive way. It'll have like questions, how do I? So how do I set up a class? How do I enroll a student? How do I open up a test? You know, and each one of those will also have videos, like a short 1-2 minute video showing you how to do that particular action. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The menus on these screens, not everything, but the menus you can change the language of. So if you come down here and you select a different language, it will change the menus into that language, as you can see here. Now, not everything changes because some things are hardwired in there. For example, the names of the courses don't change. But everything else will change to make it easier to use the system in a foreign language. We're still working on adding more features like that into the system. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the testing functionality looks like now. Let me jump in here to one of these tests. Okay, so this is a test that I have taken previously. I'm going to reattempt the test now. I got 5 out of 100. There is an automatic lockout between attempts, so that if you fail the test, you cannot retry the test until the next following day. If you are a CIS student, if you're a CIT student, it's 30 days. It'll lock you out of taking that test. So when a student is ready to take the test, it'll show them the basic information of the test here. It'll show them how many attempts are left for them. Obviously, we have a lot of attempts because this is a demo. And when they're ready, they can select attempt the quiz or reattempt the quiz. All the exam questions are listed for them here. So they can see that there are 20 exam questions as part of this. They have the ability to answer questions directly here, and they can either navigate by choosing the next page here or by selecting a question directly. Notice how all the cards right now are white. The moment I answer a question and I move to another question, it turns half of it gray. And this is to indicate to the student that an answer has been submitted for that particular question. Okay, so we go through great pains in this system to make sure that students have as much information about their test taking as possible. So as they go through these different questions, if they get to a question that they're not sure about, that they want to come back to, they can flag the question, and it puts a little red icon for them. All right, and this tells them, hey, I need to come back and take a look at this question. You can even answer the question and decide that you want to come back to it later and put the flag. Okay. If you, at the end of the test, when you're done taking questions or answering your questions, you can come back and take a look at 4. You decide, hey, I like this. You can remove the flag. You can leave the flag. The flag doesn't really matter in the system. It doesn't stop anything from happening, but it's really just there as for a student to be able to indicate to themselves that that this is a question that they want to come back to. So when you're done taking the exam, so you're done actually taking the exam, and students, I want to make clear, I'm an administrator on the exam. I want to say this again. So students don't have the ability to edit questions here, as you see here. They don't have the ability here to start a new preview. These are administrative functions that I, as an administrator of the system, have so that I can show it off and so I can test things. When students will have this finish attempt button here. So when they're done with their attempt, they click finish attempt, and this will automatically submit the test. It'll give them a summary before it actually submits the test and say, hey, these are the questions you've answered, but all these questions here you have not answered. Are you sure that you want to go ahead and submit the test and finish? Oh, well, you know what? I didn't answer this question. I need to go back to it. I can click the question number here and it'll take me right back to that question. Oh, okay. And here, my answer is C for this one. Okay. So now I come here. Now I can still see, okay, I answered that question, but I have all these other questions I have to answer. If I'm done taking the test and I want to submit it anyway, right, I can go ahead and click submit all and finish. And it'll give you one more chance to make sure that's what you want to do. Okay, it'll tell you once you submit it, you can't change anything. Okay, these are your answers are locked in. So if I'm ready to, I can cancel that, or if I'm ready to submit, I can click submit. And it will give me a visual representation of how I did on the test. It'll tell me all the questions I got wrong will be red, all the questions I got right will be green. It'll tell me my score, okay? And it'll show me the questions that I got wrong. It will not show me what the correct answer is for the question. It will, however, show me which answer I selected that was incorrect. If I did not select a question, if I did not select an answer at all, it will not show you anything. We don't want to show you the wrong answers on something you didn't select because that would give you the right answer. And anything that I selected correctly would be in green. Okay, the system randomly determines which questions students get on their exam. Right now, we have very small test banks. In the future, we're planning on having very extensive test banks. So the students will not be getting the same questions every time they take this test. The questions will be randomized from the person next to them. The answers will be randomized. That's something that we're moving towards in the future. Once they're done reviewing, the students are the only ones that can see this review. Instructors can't see this review. Once a student is done reviewing their test, okay, they can either exit out of this page or they can click finish review, and it'll take them back to their exam summary page. It'll let them know what's going on. We do not allow them to go back and review it a second time after a certain period of time has elapsed. So you can come back and review it right away, but after, I think it's 30 minutes, it will not let you leave the review and come back in. Again, this is to prevent cheating. Okay. And one last thing I wanted to show you here is when you get back to your dashboard, there is a timeline function here. The timeline function, very much like the course function, will show you any exams that are scheduled for you as a student that are upcoming. Okay, and you can sort it by the dates of the exams or by the dates of the course. All right, so you can actually see, oh, these are the exams that I have scheduled. These are the exams that I have access to, and in the off chance that a student is enrolled in multiple courses at the same time, they'd be able to enter the exam and take their test directly from the link here. All right. I think that's about it of what I wanted to show you from the new system. Let me actually just jump back over here. Notice how when I, as a student, don't have access to that instructor box because I'm not in an instructor view right now. I think that's about it. That was the last thing I wanted to show you guys. We have a little bit of time now for questions. So if you permit me.
Okay, David. David, this
Yep.
is Mike. I'll read off one of the first questions that I saw. It is asking, is the Edge platform replacing the other training portal where we conduct all the training?
If you're talking about CQI, so uh, not entirely. CQI will still be utilized for the time being. Again, during phase one, CQI will still be utilized for creating and enrolling students, but that process is going to be simplified in CQI. Everything else will be done. So once your class is created, you will no longer need anything in CQI. You'll be able to do everything else inside of the new platform. Once we move to phase two, CQI at that point will be phased out.
Okay, we had another question that is read this way. The certificates are a QA requirement of the company. Is the certificate available to the instructor?
No, the instructor does not have access to the student certificates. We limit the certificates to only be downloadable by the student. The student can share the certificates with the instructor. They can download them as PDFs, but the instructor does not have the ability to print out their own versions of the certificates. Only students have that ability. This is both a privacy issue with a lot of the privacy laws that are coming out around the country, around the world, as well as this is bringing us into compliance with the ISO standards for certification programs. One of the things that we're moving towards as IPC is that we would like to have our certification programs accredited by the American National Standards Institute, very much like our standards are accredited right now by ANSI. And they are accredited to ISO 17024. Which is the international standard for the accreditation of certification programs. And one of the things that organization that ISO has determined globally is that the certification belongs to the student, and only the student has the right to determine whether the instructor has a copy of that.
Okay, what is the time scale for the essentials and the enhanced policy and procedures courses? And I believe you addressed that, indicating that that program would not be implemented until late Q2, correct?
Yes. It's late Q2 is what we're looking at. So we're looking at really middle of June.
Right, and IPC will be sending out an announcement prior to the launch with a given launch date. There will be plenty of time for the instructors to
Yes.
hear about this as well, correct?
We're going to continue our communication strategy. I think you'll have noticed that in 2018 we have really tried to step up the quality and quantity of our communication and to be more transparent with all of our CITs, MITs, and training centers. And so we will continue that. We are going to announce an official launch date very soon. For the program to give people time to adjust to it. We will also be distributing the updated version of the policies and procedures, actual policy and procedures document that talks about the new changes. Nothing in there is really changing beyond what we've already discussed.
Okay. There is a question on here that maybe I can address. It indicates details about the webinar that a person that was on this call actually received this from a different colleague. If you were signed up for the webinar today, or if, and for those people who didn't happen to make it, there will be a video copy being sent by email to everyone who is signed up for the webinar. It'll be a video presentation that David went through today, as well as the question portions that we've gone through. If so, the person who indicated that he was sent the invitation by a colleague, touch base with your colleague to make sure that he forwards you the information, because it will be sent directly to that person who is on the email address.
Also, I just to kind of build on that, Mike, the invitation for this was part of an announcement that we made. We sent out twice at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of March, and it was sent to all CITs, all MITs, and all training centers in the system. So if you did not receive that email, it either means that we do not have your correct email information at IPC, or that it might have been caught up in your spam filter. So either way, if you need help with that, please let us know and we'll try to figure out what's going on.
Okay, another question. What is the reason that an instructor cannot see the exam review of a student post-exam?
That's an excellent question. There are two reasons for this. One is the last thing that we want remember, this is not a training program. The CIS, CIT program are not training programs. These are certification tests. So the certification test is a validation of knowledge and skills. The last thing we want is for our instructors, or for any instructor, to be teaching to the test, right? So an instructor should not have visibility into the test questions, right? And students need to have information to help them understand what areas they need more help on, but an instructor should not actually see the exam questions on any exam. And this is kind of a baseline kind of rule across education. The second reason is because we're moving towards a system that is going to, the system in the near future, once the new exam banks are built, is going to send a report to the instructor and to the student that's going to let them know that by topic area, how did that student perform? And that's the information that the instructor will be able to use to help the student. Seeing the individual question is not going to help in the near future because of the fact that there's going to be test banks. The student will probably not be getting the same questions on their test that they got the time that they failed. Beyond that, this is also one of the things that we're moving towards to secure the exam, to improve the quality of the exam, and to issue us towards accreditation.
Okay, another question that came in. We have a CQI administrator that schedules for our instructors. Will that still be possible for administrators to schedule exams for all instructors and register students?
Wow, what a great question. The answer to that is yes. They can still schedule the classes like they would in the in the CQI portal. Anyone that is listed as an administrator in the CQI portal will be added to any class that they create for another instructor. So if you as an administrator have created a class for one of your instructors, you will be added in as an instructor in that class so that you can actually go through the process I just showed you on scheduling the exams for them.
Okay, let's move on. The next question. You mentioned that the new automated certificates will automatically generate an expiration date. Will it recognize when a student is on a 90-day extension, meaning that the expiration month should originate back before the 90-day extension began?
Yes, absolutely. It will recognize that. Unlike the previous system that didn't take that into account, the logic of this system does. And actually, that's something that's in testing right now. So yes, we're very pleased with the way that's turning out.
Good. Another question, is the essentials going to need to be taken prior to class on the student's own time, or during the time the instructor is there?
No, you can take the Essentials course as well as the Enhanced Policies and Procedures course and the exam at any point in the training process. You do need to proctor that exam, but they can take the actual training whenever they want. So you'll unlock that exam like you unlock any other exam. and you need to proctor that exam like you would any other exam. Uh, the big difference is going to be that the student will not earn their certification until that is completed. So a student can go ahead and skip the essentials and or the enhanced policy procedures module as a whole. They can skip that, go straight to module 1, complete that, successfully pass the test, jump to module 2, pass that test, go to module 3, pass that test. That's fine. It will not stop them from moving ahead, but it will not issue the certification to them until that enhanced policies and procedures section is completed.
Okay, another question. Will revision of a document from F to G, for example, lock out trainer access to the presentation material, which is to an old revision. I am aware that the certification is not revision specific, but we are required to review newly released documents for risk assessment before permitting them on contracts. Training to an old standard has been required for us in the past.
Um, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for you right now because in this iteration of the system, we're not putting the training materials on there immediately. We will allow people to certify to the current revision and the past revision of the standard through the portal. So you'll still be able to do that.
We have a record of who sent in this question, so we'll take it offline and get an answer for you and send it to you by email. So watch for that email with an explanation of or an answer to your question. Another suggestion, this is, allow a photo to be attached of workmanship samples for traceability purposes. So we have someone who suggested allow a photo to be attached for workmanship samples for traceability purposes.
That is actually a fantastic suggestion, and that is absolutely something that we're going to look into because I know that it's possible to do in the system because we can attach photos of individuals, we can attach photos to anything in there. So that's actually something that we're going to look at into very. I don't know that we'll do it for launch because that's going to require us to change some things, but it's something that we're going to look into, and you might be seeing that very soon. Thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate that.
How will pricing be affected? I
I mean,
believe that the pricing information has been sent out to the training centers and to companies on when the new courses are going to be implemented. That information has been sent out. If you didn't receive the email, we need to hear from you. But that was already communicated out to the marketplace. In fact, it was communicated there have been over 4 emails that have been sent out concerning that. Is the beta course only available for a class in the next few weeks? How long?
um, we'll probably be running beta tests through the end of May, I would say. Um, I can't guarantee you that every week we will have beta users because some weeks we may want to take the system down to do some updates and new features and stuff like that. But we will be, I would say, for the next maybe 8 weeks, we'll be running beta tests 7 weeks or something like that. So if you're interested in doing a beta test, please let us know. Again, you can email me, David Hernandez, or you can email Chris Roberson, who is our point person. He's our director of certification. He's the point person on who's running the beta test for us.
This question we already answered, but we'll repeat the answer. Expected public rollout date for Edge 2.0 is late Q2. Watch for notices of the exact launch date.
Yep.
Is the policy and procedures lecture going away? It looks like policy and procedure will be done via and essentials type courses.
Yes, you will no longer have to do the essentials presentation as part of your lectures in course. It's going to be handled by a short online presentation that's now part of the system. And again, this is to really simplify the whole process for instructors.
So
Okay.
another question that came in, does this affect the online print exam as well?
Well, I talked about that a little bit about how online print is going to be handled. The online print, I think, is going to be a lot easier to do now than it was before, because you'll be able to you'll when you sign up for an online print test, you'll have a class that'll have all your downloads for you, and you'll be able to enter all the students' data directly on there, their grades, and the students will get their certifications automatically through the platform, just like students who take the digital test do.
Another question that came in, 24-hour lockout for CIS failures. Is this like from 3 to 3, or is it
It's
just
next day.
the next day?
It's next day. Yeah, it's not a 24-hour lockout like actual 24 hours. They will be able to take it the next day.
Okay, I'm not, okay. Someone asked the question, can you speak to why you are using an UTV time zone?
UTC time
It's
zone.
okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason we're doing it is because that's ground zero. That's the 0 point in the time zone scale. So since this is an international platform and we have instructors that travel internationally, we ran into a problem where we tried to use the clock on the instructor's computer, because it would essentially not allow for anyone to take a computer outside of their time zone without screwing up when the students had access to the test. So instead of doing that or setting it as a US time zone, we decided to do it at ground zero, at a 0 point in the time zone scale.
Another question, if companies do not have access to certificates, is there a printable document that shows that so-and-so is current, has a
Yes.
current certification?
Yes. Well, not only will you be able to verify that online, not only will you be able to see a list of all your certifications like you normally do now, but like I showed you, once you print out a report, you'll be able to actually see the name of the student, when they earned their certification, and their certification serial number. So a lot of times, I know that there's a lot of requirements for companies to have the certification information. ISO identifies that that is a requirement for companies to have also. But what we cannot give you is the ability to download the actual certificate itself. So instead, what you get is you have the information about the certification, not necessarily the certification itself.
Someone asked a question about pricing for the testing and the essential classes. Again, this has been communicated out at least 4 different times. If you did not receive this information, please send us an email to let us know, and we will send you the communication that has been sent out. I am an MIT but have not received the email. How can you assist me? Please send me your information, because all MITs were copied on that information, and I have had other MITs report that to me. And what we have discovered is that in some cases, the information was delivered into their spam filters. Will
Okay,
all
we have time
CIT,
for yeah, we have time for a couple more questions, Mike, and then we're gonna wrap up the webinar.
okay, sounds good. Will all CIT MIT receive a video copy of the new IPC portal via email?
Yeah, you should receive a link, I think in the next 2 days, 3 days or so, with a video copy of this presentation. Additionally to that, we will be putting up a copy of one of these presentations on the help section of the portal. So in case you ever want to refer back to it, you can.
Is it possible to unlock all modules at once when you are having a challenge class where everyone is working at their own pace?
No, you can schedule them all to be open at the same time, but we don't have a function that allows an instructor to unlock all tests at once, versus one test at a time. You have to go through it and unlock each test.
So the one last question that we will take today is questioning the questions that we have for around the exams. Um,
Okay.
can you address that? I know we've done some work on building those banks, and maybe that information will help answer that type of question.
Yes. So we are rebuilding all of our test banks for all of our certifications. We are basically going to be taking suggestions. We put out a call for CITs and MITs that wanted to submit questions as part of a process. There's going to be a small committee of industry experts that are going to vet the questions, along with our own certification director, and we're going to be hiring a psychometrician, a full-time psychometrician to be part of IPC, who will be working with the committee to evaluate the questions. Questions will be beta tested initially to make sure that they are scoring within a proper range. We will be running psychometric reports after every exam that is issued, regardless. So if you do an exam for 3 people, a psychometric report of that exam will be run internally by IPC, and we will track performance of all questions on a year-round basis, and we will be adding and removing questions and adjusting questions as necessary based upon that psychometric analysis. So if I had to compare it to the way things are done now, as far as the quality of the questions, I think you will be shocked by the quality of the questions that we're going to have in a few months towards the end of the year when we start releasing the new question banks, because there's going to be this is a big point of emphasis for us. We want to make sure that we have questions that are clear, concise, that are relevant to the material that is being studied, and that are correct. So we're putting a great deal of effort and support to do that. This is one of our big initiatives.
Okay, this is Mike Molassen. I'm part of the marketing department and would like to thank all of you for attending our webinar today. Again, watch an email. You will get a video recording of the webinar. It should be out in a couple days. And thank you all for attending. And any questions that were not answered in our question session, we will be responding to those questions by separate email. Again, thank you for attending and have a wonderful rest of your day.